Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So let's talk about a little about modules 1 through 3. This is we've just starting module 4 this coming Monday. Actually, we're working on module 4 now. So I want to go back, if this were kind of like the old school way where a teacher would come through, would at the end of let's say a 3 or 4 week period might review what was studied the previous 3 or 4 weeks. And that's what I want to do for modules 1 and 3. And I want to do this because as I look at the 10 weeks we're together, I look at modules 1 through 3. It's probably the most critical in terms of your futures in leadership and management. Modules 4 through 10 are more marketing operations. They're very tactical. We're going to get into digital marketing and traditional marketing, and we're going to think about how the different generations think about the platforms they use. We're going to learn that Gen Z really does not like to be marketed on their social media platforms, whereas Gen X and certainly millennials are okay with it. So it's really going to be a tactics course. Modules 1 through 3 are they're really about strategy, and they're about concepts. And many of you aren't going to go into marketing. You're not in marketing. You're not in sales. You have no desire to go into marketing and sales, right? So the question in your minds might be, why am I taking this 10-week class in marketing when it's not something I'm particularly interested in? So I just want to kind of reinforce why this class is as important as it is. I would say it's as important as the strategy class that you'll take and the organizational change class you'll take, because those are senior management issues that you're going to deal with for those of you that want to climb the chain. So let's talk about that, right? So modules 1 through 3, we were talking about brand equity, and I want to really reinforce in your gray matter, right? If I can get anything to lodge in your gray matter on this little mini lecture, it's that brand equity is an asset. So I'm going to kind of put my finger here. I'm going to say asset, 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 right? Hoping that kind of lodges in your brain, right? Because it's like any other asset you might have in your bundle of assets that you manage, right? So as you climb the ladder, you could have buildings, you could have patents, you could have production machines, you could have all kinds of assets that you may think, because you see them, you think about managing them, right? If you have a building, certainly you're taking care of the building so it doesn't leak on your employees as they're at their desk minioning away. But it also has a particular value should you go to sell it. So imagine you've got 2 buildings that are working fine, but one has just been completely ignored for the last 30 years, and it's just a wreck, right? So from an asset perspective, it's worth less than the building that you had maintained, even though you perhaps maintained at a level that exceeded what the day-to-day operations required. Right? And all of you can probably think of any number of assets that you take care of, either in your personal life or in your work life, that you may we'll say maintain at a level above what's required kind of day to day. It is considered an intangible asset, right? I've talked about that numerous times in many lectures and in my announcements. It is a financial calculation that it doesn't appear in a financial statement. So let me step out of the way here so you can see this. And I want to kind of make this clear. So it's an intangible asset that if you talk to anyone, if you talk to the CEO or CFO of General Electric, Apple, of the local power company, they will all know that kind of brand equity falls inside this big bucket of intangible assets, but it doesn't show up, in fact, on any financial statements. So if we were to look at Nike's financial statements, their balance sheet, we wouldn't see a nice line item that says, brand equity is X, because in part, it's, the Accounting Standards Board hasn't decided it should be there. That's the big thing, right? It's called FASB. And it's really hard to calculate because it can change from day to day, right? A building you can count on having a particular value per square foot over time. And, we know it'll go up and down over time, but by and large, quarter to quarter, year to year, it stays the same. Brand equity would be pretty hard to calculate. So brand equity does come into play, though, if the organization should be sold or merged. So let's look at Nike for a moment. So we know that the Nike swoosh, what we think, right? Again, these things can change all the time. The swoosh all by itself, just the swoosh all by itself is worth somewhere around $15 billion. Some really smart accounting person went through and compared a bunch of brands and compared the financial performance and said, the swoosh accounts for about $15 billion in the difference in Nike's performance over the other brands in that same space. So just the swoosh all by its alone is worth 15 billion, right? And that's part of brand equity, right? You got the brand association, brand awareness, brand loyalty. I've mentioned I'm a big Nike Pegasus user. I've never used another running shoe, and I probably never will. Pan Am is another one. So some of you may remember Pan Am. Pan Am was an airline that went out of business, I think in the 80s, but you can still see its logo. I just looked it up today. You can still see its logo used on, I saw it on clothing items. And there's a store that's called, I think it's called just Pan Am. And it's everything. You look at it, and if you flew Pan Am, you'd recognize the logo. So someone recognized the logo as having value. Right? So if we're thinking about it as an asset, right, like a building, a patent, right, we would do things that are based on our understanding that you can derive financial benefits. Right here we got financial benefits from the asset, and it's worthy of investment. Right. So the easy one for us to kind of relate to is the swoosh. So Nike, we know Nike invests a lot of legal dollars in protecting the swoosh. Right. So if you personally were to go out and create some, go to the local store, get some t-shirts, put the swoosh on it, and Nike's legal department figured it out, they would write you a letter. In fact, I run into, I think this was Caterpillar or John Deere. They have kind of junior lawyers. It's the first job out of law school, where they just scan the world looking for people to be using their logo in a way they would rather not. I ran into someone who just made t-shirts that played with John Deere, the tractor manufacturer. And I can't remember, I think it was something like "Nothing runs like a deer." And something was chasing, it was a silly t-shirt. It was just supposed to be funny. I think the guy sold like 20 t-shirts. But John Deere's legal department sent him a letter saying, we understand this is funny, but you make the decision to continue, and we'll make the decision if we're going to sue you. And he stopped because it just wasn't worth it. So John Deere was spending, right, they're investing a lot of money in their legal apparatus to protect, their brand. Right, so in this class, we've asked this question pretty early on here. Why, what can operations do to contribute or protect brand equity? Right, so in the case of John Deere, I just gave you, the legal department, is an investment in protecting John Deere's brand equity. All right, so let's just shift scenarios. Maybe that'll help you if we think of something that isn't a theme park. Right, so this next one I was thinking about is, right, so we're talking about Nike. So if our scenario were Nike and not a theme park, the question would be, we could have asked you, what can legal do to protect, contribute to brand equity? That one's pretty simple. If someone's using the swoosh the way Nike would rather they not use the swoosh, that's a pretty simple answer when you're thinking about brand equity in the legal department. But how about this one at the bottom, right? So if the scenario was Amazon, what could truck maintenance do to contribute to or protect brand equity? Right? It doesn't seem like truck maintenance would really have a lot to do with brand equity. So this will go back to your strategy course. If you haven't had it yet, you have to figure out, you have to understand, well, what is it that really differentiates, your company from others? You can either compete on price, which is cost, compete on cost, or compete in differentiation. Right? So part of Amazon's big differentiating factor early on was that you could get stuff delivered in 2 to 3 days. Now you can get it delivered in a day or two. So I'd say for the maintenance guys, maintenance department, you've got two things to protect brand equity, right? Which is a brand association for Amazon, which is obviously the trucks have to be up and running. We know that. But I don't think I've ever seen a dirty, filthy Amazon truck. I don't think I've ever seen one with broken headlights or tail lights. I don't think I've ever seen one with, bumpers hanging loose. As I recall, they're all in pretty good shape. So not only do they work, right? So they work so you can get your packages in a day or two, but they also strike me as kind of a logo delivery method because the trucks are always in good shape. So if you were thinking about truck maintenance, you can answer that question. How does maintenance contribute to brand equity? And you could, in your current companies, right? I think in first week or second week, I said, go into your where you work now and just look around and pick a department that you wouldn't think contributes to brand equity. And then just think about it. What if they weren't doing the thing they're doing right, how might that impact brand? I think I may have used for Amazon the people in the warehouse that pack the boxes. What happens if their correct pick rate was only 80%, which means 20% of their customers were getting incorrect shipments. So you can think about that. It's really pretty much everything inside an organization has to do with protecting the brand or contributing to the brand. That is really it for this mini lecture. I hope it wasn't too long, but of everything we're doing, modules 1 to 3 are the most useful for the highest percentage of students. Now as we move through 4 to 10, this is more about tactics. And some of you may never worry about social media again, at least from a corporate standpoint. But 1 to 3, you're gonna be worried about modules 1 to 3 from now until the day you retire to your Mediterranean mansion with your yacht parked out there at your personal dock. We'll talk to you soon.